troopresource.org, trying to put 1,000 skills into every troop's backpack.
So the service project is what most people think about as the key part of the Eagle path. So the purpose. Why do we do an Eagle Scout project? Well, it is a capstone event with regard to the Eagle getting to become a young man of leadership or young lady of leadership, and we want to be able to demonstrate that, and the project helps them to demonstrate that. Plus, it also gives them valuable experience because as they go through the careers, and many of you in your careers know that 99% of the time you're doing projects. And so this gives a young man or a young lady the experience and capabilities of learning how to do a project in a safe environment with a lot of guidance from their local troop people. Who benefits? The community benefits. You cannot have it for anything that's for profit. So it has to be for a non-profit, and it can't benefit Boy Scouts either. So it has to be a non-commercial, for a non-profit organization. Usually it's a school, community organization, a park, or something like that. Cannot be a fundraiser. The project itself cannot be based as a fundraiser. That doesn't mean you couldn't do fundraising to do the project. You may have to do that. For some projects, you may need to require gathering funds in order to, let's say, fix up a local park or something like that. But the main reason cannot be for just raising funds for something. And if you do raise funds for your project, you must fill out the Eagle Scout fundraising application. It is very important that you fill that out and get that done as early as possible and get that approved as early as possible so that the funds can be raised in the proper way and handled in the proper way. It must be planned and led by one scout. No dual projects here. You can't have two scouts working on the same project. You can have scouts work sequentially. So you can have one scout do a project and then have another scout maybe follow on later on with more of a project on that same area, but you can't have them doing the same project at the same time. Okay, so timing, planning ahead. This is something where you are going to work with your scout, or you as a scout are going to try to plan a lot ahead for this. It takes a long time to get this stuff done. And the reason why is because everyone's got their own agenda. When you're working with a beneficiary, that beneficiary, you're not necessarily, you as the Boy Scout are not necessarily the #1 person on their hit parade. They have a lot of other things they have to get done, and you are one of those things that they're going to help, but you're only one. So as a result, you'll find things get delayed. You'll call someone and it goes a couple of weeks and they don't get back to you, and then you have to call them again. It requires a lot of follow-up by the scout to make sure things move quickly and smoothly. So start early. Don't wait until it's 3 weeks before you're going to age out. You're just not going to get it done. Ideally, 6 months ahead before you're going to age out would be sort of where the limit is, where I would say, of getting something done. You can start as soon as you become a Life Scout. So there's no reason why you have to wait until, let's say I get 21 merit badges, where it's not necessary to wait. You can just go right on ahead. As soon as you get your Life Scout, begin thinking about what is my project going to be, and begin contacting people to get some ideas. Also, record keeping begins right away. As soon as you start working on this Eagle project, start recording your hours, because that's part of the project. You as a scout planning this, and the people that you work with who are helping you plan this are all part of your scout hours. Okay? So sample Eagle projects, these are pretty basic ones: cleaning debris, landscaping in a pool, a school playground, reconstructing a park trail. You might be able to do tree identification or place bolts somewhere. There's a lot of things you can do, and you can be really creative with this. I've seen some really interesting ones. I saw a young man from our troop, Shane. He collected shoes for people that needed shoes, and he had a team of people. They went out and put boxes all over the neighborhood. They put them in businesses, and they collected 2,000 pairs of shoes, which are delivered right down here in Philadelphia to a mission that needed shoes. And he went through and cleaned all the shoes, had them sanitized, bagged according to size, and delivered them that way. Great project, really outstanding. In terms of where you should find those projects, contact your Scoutmaster, but also contact your youth group leaders, your teachers, contact your principal, contact local park officials and local government officials. You can contact your religious leaders. There's all kinds of different folks out there you can contact to try to find interesting projects. You may even contact National Park Service or someone like that. The neat thing is, if you can latch onto a project that's cool, you'll be really into it. And the more into the project you are, the more you're going to really enjoy doing it. And the more you enjoy doing it, the better you'll do it, and the better the community will benefit. So I encourage you to look for one that's a little bit challenging to you, or that's a little bit different. It'll be exciting for you. You can paint the church basement, and that'll work, but try to look for something a little more exciting that gives you a better feeling of satisfaction. Okay, so project planning. The project workbook Arlen mentioned earlier, you can download this from the Colby SA website. I encourage you to make sure you have the latest version. Don't take one off of some non-authorized website. Make sure you get it from the Colby SA website so you have the latest one. It is the only official way to do this. And they've gone through a lot of thought of how to document a project. And this workbook will guide you as a scout through the process of organizing yourself to do this project. It is really very helpful, so I encourage you to do that fairly on and read through the whole project book. Don't miss any pages. Read through it before you start so you understand what's there. It is a fillable PDF, but you have to open it in Adobe Reader. Don't try to open it and try to fill it out in a browser because it just doesn't work. Apple doesn't work real well either, but if you open it with a Adobe Reader, it works rather well. You can add pages to the workbook, your own pages. You can throw them in the back if you want with more photographs or whatever else. You may have a separate log you keep of hours. That's fine to put that in behind the workbook, but you must fill out the workbook. No minimum number of hours. Obviously a project that takes 10 hours, we might kind of go, maybe that's not enough, but there's really no minimum. What we're looking for is for the scout to have had the experience of actually leading a group of people and accomplishing something. That's what we're looking for. Plan something, make it happen, lead some people in the process, and get something done. That's what we're looking for. And so, I'm also an Eagle chair. I do Eagle boards of review, and that's what I look for. How involved was the scout in getting this done? Were they the one that led it? Were they the one that followed through on all the stuff? That's what we're looking for. It doesn't have to be something lasting. If it is, it's nice to see a label on there that says it's from an Eagle Scout, so that others passing by can understand the gift that Eagles have given to our community over the years. Recommend using 3-ring binder to keep the pages together. Unfortunately, one of the Scout laws is a Scout is organized. It's not. But I wish it was, because it's one of those ones that I would definitely like to see. The more organized you can be as a Scout doing this, the easier this whole thing's going to be. Project coach. I serve as a coach. Arlen serves as a coach. Your project coach is someone who's going to be able to help you through this process. They're not going to do it for you, but they're going to show you easy ways and little tricks you can do and faster ways to get things done and how to actually carry out a project. Because for many of you, you've never done that before, and that's cool. But the coach is going to help you get that done. And so they're knowledgeable about the process of how this all gets done, which is what we're talking about tonight. They also will provide guidance in who to talk to, or maybe you should call this other person, or how soon do you think you should call this other person back? Those kind of things. They help you with a little guidance. But the leadership for the project is in the scout itself. The mentor will not be leading this project. The scout will be leading it. The sections that need to be completed are contact information. On there, it's going to be all the people, like the beneficiary and your Eagle coach and your troop leader and yourself. All those people are going to be in that contact information area. And that's handy for you as a scout because it's your one-stop shop. That's where all the people you're going to contact are, so fill it out. And if you do, you just go to the front page of your workbook and there's everybody you got to contact. It's pretty handy. Project description and benefit. That helps the people evaluating the project initially understand what it is you're doing, and it's very important to fill that out completely. You can include sketches or photos. That's really helpful to people evaluating your project, to be able to see what it is you're talking about. So take a few good pictures, try to make them as clear as possible, show the work that needs to be done. They'll come in handy later on when you're doing your board of review because you'll be able to show the before and afters too. Giving leadership, show you how you're going to give leadership, show what materials and supplies and tools you're going to do. Now here's a tip. When you are going through your project, ask around in your troop or maybe in other troops, has anybody done one like this before? Because they may be able to give you tips on how much materials you needed. How much concrete did you need to fill out this area? Or how many boards did it take to do this? They'll give you some tips and pointers on things that they've done before. So look at other projects that have been done to give you some estimate of what you're going to need in terms of materials, supplies, and tools. And any other needs. Other needs might be things like your first aid kit or a cell phone or those kind of things that you're going to have on the job site. Permits and permissions, this is something you want to look at early on. Permits and permissions take a long time. Government does not move briskly. So as a result, you want to make sure that any permits you're going to need, you know up front. Now, how will you know if you need a permit? Well, you go ask the permit people. You go to your local township offices and say, hey, look, I'm thinking about doing this project in this location, and here's what I'm going to do. Do I need a permit? And they'll tell you. They'll tell you if you need one. And if you do, you need to get that paperwork started fairly soon. That could take up to 2 months sometimes to get a permit done. So be aware of that. Preliminary cost estimate is very important. The beneficiary is certainly going to want to know what that is. And if you're paying someone out of pocket, you're going to know what it is too. Project phases, there's the planning phase and the gathering phase and the execution phases. All those are documented within the book. The logistics is how things are going to get moved around and how it's all going to get done. Safety issues is very important. We look at this in reviewing projects very, very carefully. Safety is extremely important with these projects. As yet, I don't think we've ever had anyone seriously hurt in one of these projects, and we want to kind of avoid that. Among the safety things, of course, there's the major things, which is power tools and who's going to use the power tools and all that, and that is explained in the Guide to Advancement as to who can use power tools and who can't. But the other important thing is what materials are you working with? Are you working with paint? Okay, how dangerous is that paint? Am I going to be having like a chainsaw on the site? Well, if I have a chainsaw, chances are I've got gasoline, and so how am I going to store that gasoline, and how am I going to prevent injuries? Ear protection, eye protection, breathing protections, gloves, all those things should be carefully listed in the project. It's extremely important. And in addition, with regard to chemicals, there's a thing out there called an SDS, which is a safety data sheet. You can find them on the internet, and they're for everything. You can even find a safety data sheet for water. But the bottom line is, if you're working with something like pressure-treated wood, for instance. Now, a lot of people use pressure-treated wood in their projects. Did you know that it's toxic? Well, it is, okay? And when you're sawing it, you have to wear a mask, okay? And when you're carrying it, you need to wear gloves, because the chemicals in there are dangerous to humans. So, there's things like that you've got to look up, and if you look up the SDS, it will tell you those things. You should include the SDS for any materials that you're using in your project workbook as an addendum on the back, so that the people that are reviewing your project later on are going to know that you considered all those things. Project planning and the candidate's promise, those are the closing areas of it. Okay, so 4 approvals are required. The first is the project beneficiary. This is the person who you contacted that said, yeah, hey, how about doing this thing here on my property? It might be your religious leader, it might be the park manager, someone like that. That's the person you're doing it for, the sponsor. Then you've got the unit leader. This is your scoutmaster or whatever unit leader you have, the coach advisor, the skipper, whatever. It is not the coach. This is the person who runs the troop or runs the unit, okay? And then there's the unit committee chair approval. They want to make sure that everything's done according to the book, and so they're going to want to look at that. And then finally, the district EGIL project reviewer. That person is going to look at it from a rules perspective to make sure that you're following all the rules and that you are doing it properly according to the Guide to Advancement. Okay, so 5 tests of an acceptable legal project. Number 1, the project provides sufficient opportunity to meet the requirement. Okay, you can actually do something here that's going to cause you to have a decent project. The project appears to be feasible. Okay, so we've seen some pretty outrageous projects come to us once in a while, and they're huge. Can the scout actually do the project, or are we going to end up stopping halfway through because they couldn't complete it? Action steps for further detailing the planning are included. So we want to see that the person has specific actions to be able to do this, and that the young man is on right track with a reasonable chance for a positive experience. Fundraising application is used to request approval for funds. It includes requests for in-kind donations. In-kind donations means they're going to give you materials, or they'll give you an extra discount here or there, or something like that. Those are in-kind donations. If an Eagle Scout candidate is offered a discount or gift cards or scrap left over for his project without solicitation on his part, he didn't ask for it, or she didn't ask for it, he or she is allowed to accept it, and an application is not required. So someone can gift you things, but you can't ask for it. You can't say, hey, is there any way I can get a discount here? Okay? But if they offer you a discount, if you go to Home Depot and you say, I'm doing an Eagle project, and they say, oh, you're doing an Eagle project? We automatically give Eagle projects 10% off. Thank you very much. You can take that. But you can't solicit it. Okay? And funds are raised on behalf of the project beneficiary, not the BSA. So, Who owns the leftovers? The beneficiary, not you. The receipts need to come from the project beneficiary. The beneficiary retains any excess funds or materials. So if you do fundraising for this project, any funds left over go to the beneficiary and then they deal with them, not us. Okay? And it has to be approved by the District Advancement Committee. So this form, when you fill it out, we'll probably go back once or twice. They usually don't go through the first time. Sometimes there's some corrections and things to be done. But you know, they do look carefully at it, and we've had a lot of them go through. Service project plan. Plan is for the scout use. It does not need to be approved or signed. So this is the project plan. This is the in-between part. There's the beginning part, which is the project approval, and then there's the plan. The plan does not need to be approved. However, having said that, you want to make sure that that plan has all the safety, that they really have thought about the materials, that they've thought about the tools, that they've thought about the training for the people that are going to use the tools, all that sort of thing. But the plan allows the scout to develop this skill in being able to plan something, and that's really, really critical here. But having said that, by planning well, you know, as we all know, you know, a plan that's planned well helps prevent failure in the future. That's what we're trying to avoid here. We're trying to avoid problems when they implement it. Eagle Canada demonstrates leadership. Labor can be youth and adult. When dad's involved, sometimes dad gets a little anxious and dad wants to jump up and down and help. Dad doesn't lead the project. Neither does mom. Okay, the scout leads the project. The labor is not required to be other scouts. It's a good idea. It'd be great to have your troop involved. It'd be great to have all your peers on your troop involved. But they can go to their school to get help. They can go to their church or their religious affiliation, or they could even go to the parks people and get help there. But you want to see the scout leading them. So leading is easier sometimes when it's youth leading youth and not youth leading all adults. It's kind of difficult when we see a project come through and we see like there's 2 kids involved and all the rest is like 20 adults. And we kind of say, did the scout really lead this project? Not to say it has to be all youth, but we like to see a nice balance there. Record the hours worked. It helps to keep a log sheet, a separate log sheet, which then you can transfer into the project of all the hours. Have people sign in, sign out when they come in and leave the project. And it also helps in terms of safety because you know who's on the job site at all times when you have people signing in and signing out. Note the changes to the project plan. Any changes that happen, like the beneficiary changed how they wanted this done, or the weather caused this other thing to happen and so we couldn't do this. Those kind of changes should be noted in the plan. And you should make sure that you record those as you go through because chances are when you get to your board review, they're going to ask you, so when you did your project, what changed? And they're going to want to know how you dealt with that. Take any pictures you can as the progress goes along. Okay, so the project report gives the description, the observations, the changes that were made, the leadership that you executed, the materials, supplies, and tools, the service project data, the hours worked, the funding summary, how much everything cost, and how much you raised, and photos and other documentation. Post-project signatures. The candidate promised that they actually did do this, and they promised that they had done it properly according to the rules. The unit leader is then going to sign off it and say the project is complete from a scoutmaster's point of view, or a coach advisor or skipper's point of view. And then the beneficiary is going to sign off. That's the person you did it for. So we consider the project completed when this final project signature comes in. And so when you fill out your application for Eagle, the date of your completion for the project is that date right there, when the beneficiary signed off.